Put your hands on top of your head.
Well, I didn't.
Now!
Here comes the jam. Getting down with the truth. The only way he knows how to. Girls all up with his name. We call him the chief. You're damn right. He's gonna get that sucker. Yo, track down the truth. You know what a track down the truth. You know what they call him. We call him the chief. You're damn right we do.
I'll bet your mother had a loud bark.
Good morning. This is Morning Coffee with the Chief. I'm your host, Patrick Jordan, here on YouTube's Pop Culture Minefield. We are going to review the movie The Long Good Friday, starring Bob Hoskins. But before we get into the movie, let me talk about a few things. My other show, Briefing with the Chief, is going very well. I am going to interview a local candidate who's running against a Board of Supervisors member who just kind of ignored the community after the fires here in Palisades and Malibu, and so she was upset. So she decided to run against her. And so I'm going to interview her tomorrow. In fact, I got a lot of local stuff coming up on that show. So if you're local to LA or in California, definitely tune in to Briefing with the Chief every 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And KGRA's YouTube channel, they're now, oh, yeah, that's right, now KGRA DB, I'm now on YouTube. That's right, last week was my first show on YouTube. So KGRA's Rumble channel, their Facebook page, and their Twitter feed, and now YouTube. And you also download their app and just listen to me live on the radio app. And you can go back and find all my shows on KGRADB.com, Briefing with the Chief, and listen to all the other versions of my show. But I'm really excited about the lineup I got coming up and the shows that I recently did in the past, and I encourage you to go back and listen to those shows. Additionally, I have been participating in a show that airs on, it's actually on X, they're on their Spaces. It's called Political Theater, and depending on what the subject is, probably a couple times a week, I jump up to take a speaker role, and I talk about some of the politics that's going on, particularly this ICE stuff that's going on all over the place, which is how the local law enforcement are not responding, and the political leaders are resisting any effort for Trump to do their job. And I just want to remind you, regardless of where you are on the issue, President Obama deported 2.7 million people. Most of them came from these blue cities, and not one of these cities resisted the way they're resisting Trump. Not one, because they're from the same party. Politically at the time, it benefited the Democrats to deport. Politically at this time, it doesn't benefit them, so they're resisting Trump. But Trump is merely using the exact same laws that President Obama, who was nicknamed the deporter-in-chief when he was in office, he's using the exact same laws that Trump is using today. So, so the Democrats are pretty dishonest on this stuff. So, but you can also catch me on X. I do opine about a lot of the stuff going on at LASD Jordan on X, and catch me there. But hey, let's get into our show. Let's bring up, we only have one guest today, and Martine is going to step up from behind the camera and take on a role as talent on today's show. But let's start out with retired sergeant from the LA County Sheriff's Department, Danny Coon.
Good morning, Chief. Pleasure to be here this morning.
Yeah, thank you for joining me today on this British crime drama that we're going to get into. And let's there's Martine. He's our second guest here today, and we're going to do the Long Good Friday, and I'll introduce the movie in a minute. But I wanted to give a little historical context because this is, I'm going to give away a little bit of the plot. The plot is some London-based gangsters mix it up with the IRA. And I just wanted to frame some of the stuff that was going on in the 70s and early 80s in London. Now, I was in London probably in 2010, 2011, and I got a briefing from Scotland Yard, and it was about automated license plate reader. We were going big in that stuff for a while. and they tracked an IRA member. They showed how they tracked an IRA member from a port in from Belfast into northern not London, so UK, so the British Isle, all the way down to London, and where they eventually arrested him because he was up to no good. He was going to do a bombing or something like that. And it was really interesting. I really loved the technology. I pushed for us expanding technology here in LA, but we got a bunch of leftist liberals here, and they can't figure out that technology makes it cheaper to do law enforcement. Use the technology. Oh no, it's invading everybody's civil rights. So the ACLU convinced them that we can't go big on automated license plate reader. But they were still dealing with terrorists in the in the 2000s, and they still are dealing with IRA terrorists, even though they've come to a little peace. But one of the things that there's a series of bombings that were going on in the 70s and early 80s, and I thought I'd just talk about that. So it just kind of gives you an idea where they were at the time. So one of them was the British pub bombing, and I think we got a pick for that one. And the British pub bombing happened in November of 21st of 1974, and it exploded into. So British pub bombing exploded in two public houses, which they call their pubs there, in England, and 21 people died and 182 people were injured. Now, sometimes the IRA will plant the bomb and they'll give a warning, and in fact, many times they do, and sometimes they don't. And so in this place, we had a lot of people killed. Now, the Hyde Park bombing, and this is one where they targeted a group of soldiers who did kind of a they dress up in their ceremonial dress, and then they would walk through Hyde Park on their horses. You could see on the ground a lot of the horses died, and a lot of soldiers died in this one. Let me see I think I got it. So it occurred in July 20th, 1982, in London, England. Members of the Provisional Irish Republican Army detonated two explosives devices during the British military ceremonies in Hyde Park in central London. Let's see how many people. I think I had how many people died here. It was mostly soldiers that died. I want to say 11 soldiers died. And let's see. Explosives killed 11 military personnel, 4 soldiers in the Blues and Royals at Hyde Park, and 7 bandmen. So they hit the horses here, and they hit the bandstand, is what it sounds like, in Hyde Park. Now, I've been in Hyde Park. It's a beautiful park. If you ever get to London, things have calmed down. You can walk through the park and be unmolested, but it's a great park. And then the other one was the Harrods bombing. Let me pull that one up. It's the Harrods bombing, and you'll see it. Now, Harrods is a very famous department store. In fact, the boyfriend of what's her name? Let's see. So who's the gal who was married to Prince Charles and passed away? Diana. Diana married the son of the owner of Harrods. And let me pull up this bombing. Let's see, the Harrods bombing. And that's who when she died with Jody Fayed, I think is his name, is the son. She died in
Dodi Al-Fayed.
Say it again, Martin.
Dodi Al-Fayed.
Thank you very much. And Harrods bombing. And so Harrods bombing refers to a car bomb that exploded outside of Harrods department store in central London. Now, like I said, I've been there. My second trip to London, I took my ex-wife, and of course I had to go to Harrods, and I would not have gone there by myself. I would not. I would have been checking out some museum or something like that. I wouldn't have gone shopping. But they had this big thing on like the second floor to show, a thing to Diana and the love of him and her and her boyfriend and all that other stuff. So of course we had to go see that. I mean, I like the whole royal stuff, but that wouldn't have been. I want to go to a battlefield. That's what I wanted to do. But I brought my wife, so I foolishly had to go do that stuff. Anyways, this happened in December 17th in 1983. So this is still in the 80s. IRA did this, and it was a timed bomb, a planted time bomb. And they gave a warning, but nobody evacuated. So they did not evacuate. So they had 3 civilians killed. Wait a minute. No, they had 3 police officers killed, 3 civilians killed, and 90 injured. So that's actually a fairly low body count, maybe because the cops were probably there because of the threat, and that's how they died. So, But, you know, 37 minutes, that's to empty a department store, Danny. That's not a whole lot of time to empty a department store, right? When you got a
Not at
bomb,
all.
you know, you really don't know where it's at, right? So, hey, Gambit, welcome to the show. But hey, so that's what was going on in London, and that kind of sets the framework for the show. This is Bob Hoskins' international breakthrough. Oh, it is. Well, thank you, Gambit, for letting us know. I loved him in this movie. I think this was his best movie. I mean, I know Martin has seen him in other movies before. I mean, I liked him in Zulu as well, but I want to say this is his best movie. What do you think, Martin? He was. Should I pull up what he was in just to remind you? Let's see, Bob
No,
Hoskins.
I mean, I like Unleash very much.
Which one?
Unleash.
Oh.
That is with Jet Li and Morgan Freeman. I like him in Brazil, if you ask me.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, Brazil's kind of a different movie, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you know, you had that one you gotta. You remember he was in Zulu, the movie where it was about Rorschach, but he's fighting at the first battle at Adawanda, however you say that, with the Zulus, and his whole command is wiped out. And he plays this gruff sergeant who, you know, he's going down bayoneting, you know, but he goes down. I liked him in that one, but that was more of a cameo appearance. It wasn't really a starring role. So let's see what we got here. It began, let's see, like this. Director he modeled the movie after two American gangster pictures, Angels with the Dirty Faces. I remember that movie.
Yeah,
And,
I don't see anything from Angels with the Dirty Faces here.
Yeah, except that yeah, you're right. I agree. And Bullets and Ballads. I don't remember the Bullets and Ballads.
No,
I remember
I
Angels with Dirty Faces. That's James Cagney, I think.
Yep.
And the Bowery Boys, the guy, you know, those, you know, it was a bunch of young guys that were supposed to be like a local street gang, thugs. And I think Angels Dirty Faces, the goal with that. And Pat, oh my God, not Pat Boone. Pat, what's the name of that actor? It's Pat O'Brien. That's it. He was in Angels Dirty Faces. Remember, he played the priest that was trying to convince James Cagney.
Yeah, they were best friend from childhood. One became a priest, and the other was a freaking criminal.
and so Pat O'Brien is trying to save these street urchins from going into, you know, bigger gangster stuff. James Cagney is somebody they look up to, and he's going to the chair, and he says, I'm going to go to the chair, and you know, I'm going to be like a man. I'm not going to cry or anything like that. And Pat O'Brien convinces Cagney's character. He goes, you know, if you do that, they're going to look up to you, and they're going to follow in your footsteps. So do something good in your life, you know, convince them. Put on a show. So then he puts on this show that he's holding on the door frame. He doesn't want to go die, and he's crying and carrying on. This is James Cagney's character, and the guys hear this. The street urchins hear this. The street gang hears this, and then they suddenly, his star is falling in their eyes. He's not really that tough as he played out to be. He's not somebody to look up to, because look, he cried when they were going to kill him instead of being tough. So if I remember correctly, that's the movie, right? That's a big part of the movie.
Yes, but at the end, one of the guards that is tying him to the chair said to the other, "Swear to God, I could swear he was smiling when he spit at my face." he was a little defiant when the kids weren't looking.
Yeah. So that's a good movie. Two good actors in it too, James Cagney and Pat O'Brien. So do you know what we're talking about, Danny? Or you probably hadn't seen that movie.
I hadn't seen either of those movies. So.
There you go. Well, see, now you have to go do some research and see that movie. So I was a big, I was a big movie kid growing up. Yeah. Used to in the basement, TV on, watching movies. Basement. You don't know what a basement is, Danny. You grew up out here, right, in California.
Yeah. Basement. That's a place you hide from tornadoes in Kansas.
Yes. Well, yeah, we had tonight. Hear the tornado warning signs where I grew up, but yeah, so. That was my respite. I'd hide in the basement, watch TV. I had 5 sisters, so that was my escape from them. I knew brothers. Okay, but getting back to the origins of this one, John and Barry originally named the script The Patty Factor. The thing about this Gambit, the good thing about the show is they kind of keep if they'd have named it the Patty Factor, then they'd have known right away it was the Irish, right? And a big part of this film is Hoskins doesn't know who's targeting his gang, right?
Mm.
And which is, I liked Hoskins and Penny is from Heaven. Oh yeah, I forgot he was in that movie. But anyway, so let's get in the movie. This is The Long Good Friday. It was released in 1980. It's a British gangster film directed by John Mackenzie. The screenplay by Barry Keefe, starring Bob Hoskins and Helen
Mirren.
Mirren.
Oh man, 1980 Helen Mirren. Oh,
Yeah, she's
well,
the film.
she still is gorgeous. That woman is, she's blessed by by all the goddesses in the Greek
She,
pantheon.
she's got some good genes, is what you're saying, right?
Oh yes,
Who's the gal who's doing the commercial now? Has got good genes.
Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah, so she's got some good genes, right? This
I
was
think Helen's are better because they have lasted longer.
Yeah, I was interesting part of this movie is that his underlings were kind of flirting with her. I would have thought that would have been a deadly thing to do. But again,
Yeah.
these are all gangsters, right? Dumb. They're doing impulsive. But this was filmed in London. It weaves through the events of then concerns of the 1970s, including mid-level politicians and police corruption, IRA fundraising, and whatnot. And so I really I enjoyed this film. I remember the film as we did our two last British gangster movies, and this was brought up by people in the audience. So I said, hey, let's do it. What'd you think of the film, Danny? I know you said it was a little slow, but what'd you think of it?
After I got used to the 1979 screenplay, it and started to catch on. It got pretty interesting. What I got a kick out of, and you had mentioned in the pre-show, was how the music drew you in. The rating says is that the soundtrack was very suspenseful, and it was. It would just reel you in and reel you in and reel you in, and then boom, something would happen. It was. I like that part.
Yeah, that's real movie making where they have to kind of use the music to set the tone a little bit, because I think they use that. So I noticed that, and you see it, and when the music starts ramping up, something's coming, right? Something's coming. But if you look at the older films, you'll see that, like we did High Noon, right, Martine? And remember when Marshall Kane was waiting for the gangsters to come in, and the music was setting the tone, that the anticipation, he's going to have to face these guys down by himself. And the other one that we just talked about on pre-show, but another really good one that I felt that they used really music very well, because it was 12 Angry Men. So here the show is mostly in the jury discussion room on a case, and it's these guys fighting about this case back and forth, the 12 Angry Men, but they have to use music to, you know what I mean, during this stuff. And the other one was then Martine brought it up, was The Incident, which was really good. And that one is again another one. How do you create drama, right? In these scenes where it's all just mostly conversation and it's people back and forth, and music is used to do that, and they used it in this movie, right? So what'd you think of the movie there, Martine?
Oh, I loved it. I have no problem with the pacing. I like slow movies, medium movies, and some of the ultra fast movies that are done for today that are too much spectacle and too little substance, if you ask me.
Well,
This
I
one, I
I
love
think
this one.
the interesting thing about, okay, so think of Dirty Harry, think of Clint Eastwood, and how just his facial expressions can carry a scene, right? Think of that, right? And the same thing, Bob Hoskins kind of has that a little bit, some of that in this, particularly at the end.
Yes, those 2 minutes of him just making a facial expression tells you
Yeah,
how.
I mean, I thought that that's the scene, right? And I think that's what carries him as the actor in this thing, as the scene. And but we have actors. I think Clint. When I saw that last 2 minutes of him and his facial expression and his realization what's happening, I thought of actors like Clint Eastwood who could carry that off, where just a minute of facial expressions tells the story, right? You know what I'm talking about, Danny? And you see some of those actors just they don't even have to say anything, and they carry the scene.
That reminded me somewhat of the near the end of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly,
Yeah.
where Tuco and Angel Eyes and Clint Eastwood is just sitting there, and the music's going, and it's bringing you, it's getting more suspenseful and reeling you in, and it's just different facial expressions for all three of them. And
Now,
that's
all right, I got to ask you this question, Danny, because have you ever worked for somebody and maybe you screwed up or something like that, or it's a group of guys and the person walks in and they say a few things and then they just look at you and they don't have to say anything more, and you know you screwed up and you feel
Yeah.
bad. Did you ever work for somebody who has they just can walk in and they just look at you and you know that they're disappointed in you and they don't say a freaking word? Did you ever work for a leader like that?
Yes, I have.
And you're just shrinking in your seat because and so there are people who can pull that off, and I think Hodgkin pulled that off in various points in the movie, which is why I think he's such a great actor, and I think obviously Clint Eastwood is good at that. I think Mackenzie modeled the gangster films and created something unique out of them. Yeah, I think so. I think I liked this movie way back when I watched it years ago, and I knew I was going to do it when I started doing these British mobster things. But let's roll with the first scene here. Oh wait a minute, I got to talk about who's in this movie, and you can look out. So we got Bob Hoskins. We already talked about our female lead. We got Dave King as Parky. I'm trying to think of. Got to help me out here. I had all these notes. P.H. Moriarty plays Razor in this movie. Now, if you've been watching my show, he also played Hatchet Harry in the last movie we did, which was Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Did you catch that, Martin? He played Hatchet Harry.
Yes. Yeah, and he's not the only one from that movie. You
I
got
know he's not the only, but I had to point that one out, and but he's in there. But the other one is the other big one I want to talk about, and this is his first. I don't want to say starring role because he wasn't starring in it, but Pierce Brosnan.
Brosnan.
And he plays that one of the IRA gunmen, in this movie, and but yeah, and big smile on his face as he's gonna kill somebody,
Yeah.
right? So he likes what he's doing. So he plays a pretty good bad guy.
Oh yeah, and one of Harold's thugs, he was the. Remember in Lock, Stock that there are you see two pups and two pups owner. One is the dad, and the other is the friend of the dad.
Right.
I know the old guy. Well, that old guy,
he's in the
he's
movie.
one of the thugs.
Yes. Yeah, and I got it probably in my notes, but the great one was Hatchet Harry because he played a big role in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and I think one of these guys was in both Layer Cake and the other one, but I can't remember who that was. But all right, let's roll with the first scene here, and I listed this one as just Bob Hoskins. So it just introduces him, and he's Harold, the head of the London-based gangster crew. I always like these shows too because you see the interesting cars, the old style cars in the movies too, and
Yes. There are beautiful cars in
there. Yeah, so so I like. Go ahead.
This whole intro of the movie, you're watching it and you're thinking that you're just watching gangster stuff,
right?
Random gangster stuff. No, this is the key to the whole movie.
Yeah.
But you only get that after, like in the third act, when everything, the whole plot is revealed, and you say, "Oh, that is why."
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, and here's the thing. So he's got a driver, right? He's going down and he's giving money to the IRA here. So you find out that he's delivering a payoff, basically. These two IRA guys. And our main guy goes to a pub. He also happens to be gay, and he picks up he sees the kid. You see him smiling at the kid, right? And he's got a driver with him, which you find out later, is the key that tells Hoskins what's going on here. And our main guy here goes. I think he goes. I forget what he went to do, but the two other guys go out to the car and they're kidnapped.
Yes, they went out first, So they were kidnapped, and he got saved by the bell.
Yeah, because
The third guy, he who was the real target, he gets out of the pub and, hey, where
gets
are my
away.
guys?
And that's well, you see all guys in the pub, so you kind of figure that out that this is probably a gay pub. And these guys get kidnapped, and the guys who got the money were robbed. They don't show them getting killed, but that's what you find out later, right? And these guys, they don't even know what's happening, right? I don't know if I
Yeah.
would get in this car, but
Well, they are forcing them.
and I know, but the fight is there, right, Danny? It's like if you, I don't know,
Yeah,
that's
they
Here
put up
comes.
little or no resistance, and
yeah,
just by the scene, you could tell that that they were going to get killed. They just didn't show it.
And of course, we got great disappointment. Some guy thinks he's going to get bedded tonight, and his he can't find his friends, or they've been kidnapped. And our Colin is very disappointed. Doesn't know where his guys went. Now that's the other one. Where the hell did these guys go? And he just goes back to London, like, oh, I don't know what happened to these guys. He's not calling around trying to figure out where they're at. I mean, that didn't work for me in terms of the movie making. I would have been, where the
Yeah.
hell am I? Where the hell are my guys at? Right? I mean, that's
Well,
what
if you're a gangster, you're not going to go to the police to report your gangster friends.
Yeah, but you'd do a little more
Lost.
exploration, and you'd be a little more cautious. What happened to these guys? I mean, did they make the love connection themselves? And I mean, where I'd be a little more
No,
inquisitive, right?
he was in a place that's, when he's from London and he's in Belfast, he's a gangster in Belfast. He's kind of between a rock and a hard spot. So he's probably trying to play it low and just get me home type of attitude.
Yeah.
Well, obviously the bodies were found, as we find out here pretty quick. That the wife of one of these guys ends up spitting this guy's face. So the bodies had been found. So he had to know, and you would think they'd have been talking about it, or at least been on guard for something that happens. Anyway, so that part of the movie didn't really work well for me, because these guys are killed. One of them's just, Colin's trying to make a love connection, but the other is the driver that he hired to take him up there. And you would have thought that he'd have been a little more concerned. But here they are. I think this is Jeff having breakfast with one of the other characters. I think it's
That's the politician.
the politician, yeah. And he's calling up I like this. This is the old style Rolls Royce, right? The stately, big Rolls Royce, and I think that's Razor, who is the driver.
Yes.
And here's the wife
The widow.
of the widow of one of the guys killed ends up spitting.
Look at that car.
Yeah, I know, isn't it cool?
Beautiful.
I know we had such good lines in the past. Now everything, you know what I mean? I mean, what was your first car, Danny?
My first car was a 1962 Ford Falcon Ranchero.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Good lines on that, right?
It did. It was a nice car.
Nice car.
Now, see this lady here. She was the wife of the driver that
Yes.
that delivered the movie or the money in Belfast.
Yeah, and of course he acts like, what is this all about? And we find out that he knows exactly what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
And
That's probably why he didn't do or say anything.
yeah, probably. Here's a Razor. I like his name in this movie, and you see he's got a cut on his face, right? And you end up seeing cuts on his body as well. Now, here's the other thing that they had to show the Concorde, right? Because the Concorde was flying between the continental United States to France or to Heathrow here. This is Heathrow Airport. And so they had to show that, because that was a big deal in the late 70s and early 80s, right? Before it caught fire and they ended the supersonic flights, right?
Huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was a lot of money to take that thing. I never took it, man. It wouldn't have been worth it to me. Until recently, I was still flying coach. Now that I have a bad back, it's going to be whether comfort class or first class, because I don't want to start having back pain when I'm stuck in this coach thing for 5 or 6 hours, right? So I just,
Look at this way, Chief. At least it happened when really it's not that a good idea go visit in London.
Yeah, oh, well, I was so I went down.
I could get arrested the moment I put my feet on the tarmac. That
Why
we have seen your Twitter.
I was
You
supposed
will
to
never see daylight again.
I was supposed to fly. I went down with my injury beginning of August, and I was supposed to fly August 9th, and I couldn't do it. I rented a beach house in Michigan to throw a party so that my family could meet my new son-in-law and my new daughter-in-law. So because we had weddings out here on the West Coast, and they had not really met my daughter's husband, Chris, who's in the Green Beret, because every time we go back to Michigan, he's deployed somewhere, right? And he's deployed. His area of expertise is a hot area right now, so he's always gone. And then the other to meet my new daughter-in-law, and so I rent this beach house. I got this party that we're catering. We're doing this all long distance, right? We're going to cater 50, 60 people at this party, and I can't fly. There's no way I can get it. I'm in excruciating pain. And so I call up my relatives and I say, oh, well, there's no way I can fly. I'm canceling the catered party, and told my kids go back and use the house. And one of my granddaughters, her birthday was that same weekend. I said, just have a birthday party and you guys all come over and get together. And so they met each other, but I wasn't there. I paid for a party. I paid for a beach house. They had a great time, but I wasn't there because I couldn't fly. And it took me another 2.5 weeks before I could even really move without pain. I mean, if you look up the word excruciating, that's how I felt for 4 weeks. It was awful. I never want to go through that again. It was terrible. So, all right, now I told you what was happening. Let's see. So this is also happening Easter. So this is Good Friday, and all of this takes place during the course of the day of Good Friday. I love all the scenes, along with Francis Monkmaker's electronically discoed soundtrack. Yeah, it's the 70s and 80s, right? So we did hear disco, right? So that's what was going on. I was not into disco. I liked classic rock, Motown, some doo-wop. I never got into disco. Were you a disco guy, Danny?
For a hot second.
For a hot second?
Yeah.
Then you got your wife, got out of it, right?
I was more into the same music you were and country. So
yeah, I never quite got into that. I mean, you
for
had to
about
learn to dance a little bit so you can dance with the ladies, but other than that, it was not really my cup of tea.
for about a second right after Saturday Night Live came out.
Yeah, I never quite got there. You're probably a little too young for that, Martine. Were you a disco guy or
Oh no.
no? Yeah, I didn't figure it.
I was a kid at the moment, and to be honest, I was listening to classical music, uh, soundtracks of movies that I really liked, and funk.
Funk. Oh my God, I was working the streets in West Hollywood, and the funk was kind of still big in the '80s, right? And so what happens, like the Whiskey a Go Go and those kind of places, you could rent out the Whiskey a Go Go and then bring your bands, and so funk would come in and that kind of stuff, and I never quite got into funk, but I heard a lot of it because when you're working like the Sunset Strip, all of that music it intersects. It comes in and and you're gonna hear it sooner or later. But hey, let's roll with the scene. Pierce Bronson. This is his first. I don't want to say starring role, but his first big break as an actor. Say that again, Martin. How do you say his last name? Pierce
Brosnan.
Brosnan. Okay, and thank you for correcting me. But he obviously goes on to be for 007 fame, and here's Bob Hoskins. He's talking with the folks here, and obviously his name is Harold. But eventually we see Pierce Bronson, and he is picking up Colin because they got a loose end, right? The IRA, they got this guy, and what they think is they got set up. They dropped off the money and then they got ripped off, right? Is what they're thinking. You find that out as the movie goes on.
They got rip off, but not by Harold's
Oh,
organization.
well, I know that,
It's a
but
third party.
that's not what the IRA. IRA doesn't know, right? So they think it's him, right? And they do clarify it because the IRA had. Okay, let me clarify this. There's the IRA, right? And then you have the Ulster Defense Forces. Now, the Ulster Defense Forces is Protestant terrorists, right? Who mix it up with the IRA, but generally both the IRA and the Ulster Defense Forces, or the IRA, will target British soldiers, but they also target Protestant citizens, prominent Protestant citizens in the 5 counties that they call Northern Ireland, right? They were active in the Republic of Ireland too, prior to the Civil War, right? When Ireland became its own nation again. But the Ulster Defense Force are Protestant terrorists, right? So they don't really clarify. They say security forces probably ripped them off, right? But it could have been these guys, these Ulster Defense Force guys who are opposed to the IRA, and these guys, they're pretty violent. The Ulster, because they kill civilians. They're targeting civilians primarily. And so there's some really bad guys. And that's what was going on in Ireland in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, is these competing terrorist gangs. Paul Freeman was the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Gambit.
Colin, he was in the French archaeologist that was competing.
Oh, is that what? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's okay. That was Colin. Okay. But so Colin, so here we go. He's having a party on this boat. The other thing, the other backstory to this is he's trying to. It's funny because it's like Michael Corleone. He's trying to go legit. Bob Hoskins knows. He's trying to go legit. Yeah. He's trying to get this legitimate deal off the ground. He's working to get the U.S. mafia to contribute money, but ultimately he wants to do this big development thing on the waterfront as prior to the Olympics in London, right? So this is what Harold is trying to do. He's trying to go legit to some degree, and just like Marco Corleone, as soon as I get out, they pull me back in, right? So it's that's what Harold is trying to do with this big thing. Maybe this was obviously, when was the Godfather was released before this, right? Yeah.
Yes, way before.
So maybe they took some inspiration from the Godfather. This guy's trying to get out, and the interesting thing, I wrote it down in my notes. They're not smoking here. Oh yeah, he is. Everybody smokes, right? It's like here. This is definitely London in the 70s. Everybody's smoking, and the English, they were big on smoking. That's I think the colonies, we shipped it over there to kill them, I think is what. And now we're shipping it to China, and we're killing people in China, right? But that's what I noticed. A lot of smoking, and when I first started going to bars, I was actually underage. There was a lot of smoking in the bars in the Midwest and Detroit. When I moved out to California in '81, I went to a bar. I was still underage, but hey, I didn't care. No smoking. I'm like, what is this? It was for me, it was a complete culture shock going from the Midwest in a bar there. And so when I see all these people smoking in London, doesn't surprise me. But here's our gangster from the U.S. that's supposed to invest. And he actually, like Michael Corleone, he's kind of being a little shy about investing right away in Cuba because he wants to see that it's stable. So it's interesting storyline. What do you think, Danny? That's consistent with the whole Corleone thing and the Godfather 2, I think.
Yeah, more or less. It kind of goes along with that. I got a kick out of how he wants to redo the waterfront there and entertain the 1988 Olympics. Now, I don't know if the 88 Olympics were actually in London or not, but to reel this guy in and have a big party on his boat and go up and down the river there, it meant a lot to Harold to get this.
Well, it was going to allow him to be. It was going to allow him to be legit, I think, is the big part of it. The 1988 Olympics were in Seoul. So the wrong storyline, I guess, huh? But that you're right. They said 1988. So Summer Olympics were in Seoul, South Korea. Maybe they were just up for the bid, and they didn't get the bid. The Koreans won out over London after this killing, of
And
course. I'm sure. So
Well, yes, if mid '80s you got a session of public public bombings, yeah, you're not gonna have the chance to host the games. No.
so here's Pierce Bronson seducing Colin, right? So he's at the pool, and you saw him there, and here he is. He's drawing him in, and Colin's going to go find him in the shower in the bathhouse. This was so obviously this was a gay pickup, right? So uh, the guy goes to a place where there's other guys that are looking to make the love connection. Here's Colin, and you wonder how far they're going to go in this, and he ends up touching Pierce, and then Pierce's cohort and Pierce take him out. So here's Pierce,
There you got it. Bond.
James Bond. So it's yeah, you're right though. He does see how his face is much fuller,
Yeah.
than
Much baby fat on his face.
he's still got a little. Yeah, you're right, a little baby fat. Yeah, and here comes his cohort right behind him. Big smile on his face. I think I'm gonna get lucky, and then he doesn't.
Nope. Not at all.
See, I would have thought after your driver and your this love connection you're gonna make disappear, he'd have been a little more cautious. That's what I think about this, and yet he gets taken out. Now he's in his home turf. Now he's in London, but these guys follow him there and kill him. But that's it. And then the other interesting thing you see later is Harold tries to do the right thing, but suddenly everything falls apart. Big effing time. Yes, thank you, Kevin. That's exactly right. But hey, Pierce Bronson, young guy in this. What'd you think, Danny? This kind of surprised you when you saw him in the movie?
I didn't even realize he was in the movie until I
Right?
until it was over with. I'm watching that scene, and this was one of those scenes where when Pierce goes into the shower, and the soundtrack then it's one of those dramatic, the vocal stuff goes down and the music turns up, and it's just that eerie, spooky kind of something's going to happen. You don't know what, and you're thinking to yourself, "Don't go into that room," type of thing.
Yeah.
Now,
That's how the soundtrack just reels you in. That was one of those spots.
blowing up that car, that alone is a crime. You don't do that.
Yeah, the Rolls Royce. Yeah, yeah. They end up blowing up. Well, the other thing is at a church, and I had to look up. Did the IRA have a reputation of doing attacks around churches? And they actually did. So I would have thought that would have been sacrosanct for them because it's Good Friday. It's Good Friday, and the Rolls Royce was actually, I think, driving Hodgkins' mom. I think it was his mom,
Yes.
right? To church.
Yeah.
And he goes out to the car, and it blows up before mom comes out because she's saying some final prayers, I guess. And so I had to look it up. I go, would the IRA have attacked outside of a church? And yeah, they would have.
Weird, though, 'cause that was a Catholic church.
Yeah, that's the thing about it. That's why I'm like, that's I didn't think I would have thought that would have been sacrosanct given the sectarian nature of the violence, right? Protestant versus Catholic. But no, they did. I guess nothing was. I don't think I'm not aware of them blowing up a church, but near a church, I guess they weren't restrained. But this is all coming. This is now Hodgkin. He's realizing this is his first clue that he's got a problem. Was when the car blows up, right? Because he still doesn't know all this stuff, right? And so this car blowing up is his first clue that he has a problem. And
And shortly thereafter, finds out that Colin got shanked. So.
yeah, he finds out that Colin gets shanked, and I guess we're gonna get into the scene, but it's let's roll the next scene. I think a car bomb on Good Friday. I can't remember what I called it, but and he gets told about Colin, and he goes there, so he hears about it. He's shocked, and it's interesting because he talks about Colin being his best buddy that he served in the military with. And what I notice about the scene as he goes to the pool, Danny, is no cops. They don't call the cops. And
No.
Yeah, throughout the whole thing, except the dirty cops.
yeah, but
The real cops, you never saw. As I'm watching this scene, I go, what cop would allow someone just to walk into the middle of a murder crime scene?
right, right, and well, and they end up taking the body and hide the body. They don't. It doesn't get processed. They don't process the scene. They don't got the cops involved at all in it. And I'm like, it was like the last movie, last two movie, Layer Cake and uh, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Nary a cop to be found in either one of those movies as things are blowing up and people are being killed, right? So,
But they did have a meatpacking plant.
yeah, we're going to get into that scene. That was the scene I remembered most from this movie. I always remembered that scene, just because it's so unique, right? And but he's found out what's going on, and he wants to figure out. He doesn't know, right? This is part of the movie. Like I gave it away a little bit. Well, I gave it away in the beginning here, but that's why the movie, The Patty Problem, the title would have given it away. But the fact that he doesn't know who's targeting him becomes a big part of the movie, right, Danny? It's like because you don't know.
That was the entire part of the movie.
Yeah.
You have to wait. You have to watch to the very last 2 minutes to really figure it out.
Yeah, to know for sure. I know, knowing, like I'm a history buff, obviously I'm up on the Troubles and the whole conflict. And I kept saying, well, even when I first watched it, well, who's blowing up cars? Well, obviously the only people blowing up cars at the time were the IRA. So they should have figured that one out, right? That once the car bomb went off, it should have said, why did the mix after us, right? Eventually the coppers figure it out when they look at the type of bombs. So here's the scene, and obviously Colin didn't get his happy ever after. He died with a smile on his face, I guess. But right, they don't process like a regular crime. There's Razor right in the back there, and our guy that runs the bathhouse is going to keep it quiet for him, and they get rid of the body. So because they don't want the cops involved at this point, he doesn't. What Hodgkin doesn't want is he doesn't want it to interfere with his business interest. I think that's why they hid this. It's in his nature to hide it from the police, but he didn't want it to interfere with his, because he's got this American gangster that he wants to invest, right? So that's a big part of it, right, Danny?
Correct. What I got a kick out of also was how the guy who runs the pool bathhouse, how he drained the pool at the very, after everybody left, he drained it and washed down all the blood, and got rid of any type of evidence at that point.
Yeah, well, you know what? If you're running a bathhouse where people are making the love connection like that, you're used to just you hide it from the police, right? Because obviously these are against a lot of the social norms even then, and even in London, right? So, but hey, this was the scene where I realized as I was looking back at Harry the Hatchet, or Razor Martin, that he was the actor in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and he does a pretty good job in this movie, right? What'd you think of Razor in this movie?
Well, he's a loyal enforcer.
Yeah. He played a hired killer who tries to shoot Sean Connery. Oh, he did. Let's see. The actor who played Harry the Hatchet, and he also played a hired killer who tried to shoot Sean Connery because he causes a huge ruckus about the drug transportation in Outland in 1981. I don't remember that movie. I'll have to check that one out.
That is High Noon in Mining Colony in Space.
Oh, okay. Oh, and our guy Harry the Hatchet, that's what I know him as. He was in that movie. I'll have to check that one out. So I remember that movie now, but I didn't think that much of that movie with Sean Connery. So, but this is, as Bob Hoskins is trying to figure out who this is where I was like, well, who, I write my notes, well, who uses bombs? It's not the other gangsters, right? I mean, if you watch the Kill the Irishman, did we do Kill the Irishman? I don't know if we did. They were using bombs in Cincinnati to kill each other. I don't know if you're familiar with that story. There was this Irish gangster in Cincinnati. No, was it Cleveland? In Cleveland, and this is a Jewish bookmaker and the Irish mob, and they got in a conflict, and they were trying to blow each other up, and they were using bombs, and eventually they did get Danny Green, who was the Irish mobster, but they got the Jewish bookmaker, and they killed a lot of the Italian guys, but they were using bombs to kill them. So it's like it's crazy, just crazy, and it's just back and forth. They blew up Danny Green's house and didn't get him, didn't kill him, so he moved into a trailer. But I would have thought, this would have been they'd have figured out right away that this was the IRA that was chasing them just because they're using bombs and in this thing. But that's just me because I understood. And then they wanted to keep it out of the press. Which how do you keep a car bomb out of the press too? You got to be pretty powerful to do that. I outside of a church, I don't think you're gonna keep that out of the media. Particularly, London media. They're you lead with the most. You lead what bleeds, right? You're going to put that car bomb on there. That's going to make there's no way to keep that out of the press. I don't care how powerful Harold is. That ain't going to happen, right, Danny?
He wasn't that powerful. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
No, he had the money. He can keep a lid on it for like 24, 80, 48 hours. But the problem is he thought that money can trump political madness.
Right. See, these guys look at, here's the other thing. I wrote this. These guys look soft compared to Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. So I'm looking at these little skinny dudes, right, who are these gangsters. And I'm thinking, these, like Jeff, these guys don't look tough to me, Even Colin, okay, maybe Razor, but I just, to me, they didn't transmit. I thought they were soft. That's what it looked like to me. If you think of, was it the Craze? The guy, those guys were boxers. Remember the gangsters, the Craze, Danny? I think, I think that's their name. There were two twin brothers who,
the Craze.
The Craze. But and when you read up on the history, they were boxers, and they looked it. When you see the pictures of them, they looked it. These guys, they didn't look tough to me. And when you think of the Two Smoking, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, those they most of the gangsters look pretty tough. There were some softer guys in there, but most of them look like, like the one guy, I forget his name, Barry the Baptist, the character in there. And that guy was a tough looking guy. And a lot of these guys, and Vince, I can't remember his name now. He was the soccer player who played the tough guy. But there was some tough looking. Vinnie Jones. There were some tough looking guys in those films. I didn't get that from this film. These guys look soft to me. Like,
they have been softened by 10 years of everything.
Yeah, maybe. It may be so because it's been at peace, but I don't know, man. I don't know if I'd have been intimidated by one of these guys if they tried to extort me and my bar money. I don't know. What did you think, Danny? They look to me.
They were soft. That's what I had a hard time getting a grip on it, because when you think of gangster movies, most of the time in the United States you're thinking mafia, but also you see a lot of the Irish gangster movies and how they are portrayed in American television. Expect like when you used to watch Law and Order or something like that, they didn't portray these guys as little pansies. They portrayed them as pretty tough guys. Then I also go back to my childhood. Jerry Quarry was a boxer, an Irish boxer. The guy had a soft jaw or glass jaw, but he was a tough dude, and he looked tough.
Yeah. And
some of my neighbors down the street, the boys that lived in that household, they were all Irish American. They were tough looking dudes, and
yeah. Yeah,
so they were intimidating. Now the only one in this one, Razor, was intimidating. He had that look. If he didn't have that scar, probably would not so much.
Right. Well, he was tall too. That's the other thing. It's like Jeff. He looked a little soft to me. I don't know.
Jeff is more managerial style. He's not there to rough anybody. He's just there to be the Harold's right hand. That's it.
Yeah.
And that was a bad choice.
And to hit on his wife.
Yeah, but even Colin didn't look all that tough to me. But Avi Hoskins did. He played a tough role. He's not a big guy, but he's kind of a barrel of a guy. I can see that. Okay, I can see that. I can see he's kind of like a Al Capone type, right? Um, but I just didn't. I just wrote that as a comment. I didn't see that in. I think they could have picked some bigger guys just to be a little more intimidating. Okay, so they're whining and dining our U.S. guy. We got time for another scene. Our U.S. guy before our break, and they're going to take him to a big dinner at the Lion and the Unicorn. Right? They always got these great names for pubs and restaurants, right? And this is the Lion and the Unicorn, which is a typically British kind of name for a place, right? And beautiful place, or at least what they're showing here. In a minute, it won't be so beautiful, and of course it blows up before they get there, and right in front of our guy who's supposed to invest, right? And I think he'd have been gone the next day after this if he sees this. Now, if you don't know that the Irish are targeting you at this point, then you deserve to be taken over, I guess, or suppressed by these guys. And of course, he's in shock. And the interesting thing is, nobody dies in this big explosion. I guess it goes off upstairs. At least that's what they say. And
Yeah, they put the bomb upstairs because they knew that is where he was going to have the dinner.
a little early, and he's the target now. He's realizing he's the target. And
You gotta figure though, the IRS, or they miss Hoskins' mother when they blew up the Rolls Royce. They miss Hoskins here when they blew it up. They're about 5 minutes late on it, or early on everything.
right, yeah.
And when Hoskins goes on his killing spree at the end, these guys are right on target. They're whacking everybody like they're supposed to be.
Right. It's it's well, you know what? There isn't a science, I guess, to being a terrorist, I guess, so, and I don't, remote control is one of the things you could use, I guess, but these guys are using timing devices. So yeah, they said it, if 5 more minutes, that would have been us. So maybe just rolling a little late, but they also they find out they had a bomb in the casino.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they call in the cops to figure out who the hell is doing this. And this is where they ultimately figure out that it's the Irish. And the interesting thing, as he's talking about it, he tells what's going on. You can see the expression in Jeff's face, right? When he ultimately talks about this in front of Jeff, you see and this is where facial expressions are a big deal. You see on Jeff's face that he knows what's going on. He knows what's going on. He knows who's doing this. And that's well, given that he's hitting on his wife, that's a big betrayal of Jeff, of his boss, right? That he doesn't tell him, hey, this is the Irish coming after us. I was doing XYZ and it went bad. And he's not telling Harold up front that's what's going on.
Well, he cannot tell up front because he's the one giving the IRA the locations in which Harold is going to be.
To get him, right, yeah. So he's working. Yeah, it's here's Jeff. See, I don't see him as being that tough, right? I mean, Razor, he's big, right? I mean, just I got to go back to that.
Jeff is a weasel. He just wants Harry dead, so he thinks he can take control of everything that Harry owns.
And yeah, he's not intimidating at all. He'd be wiped out in 5 seconds later, right? If once Harold goes, Harold is the only one keeping him alive. Well, until a little later in the movie. But so now this is also the other thing. I'm surprised they're able to keep the American investor close after this, right? That he's still in London. I think he'd have been on a plane. Michael Corleone would have been on a plane out of there the next, that night, right? We're out of here. Get on the Concorde. We're going back to New York as quickly as possible to get away from these guys. But this, like I said in the front of the movie, this is typical IRA stuff. This is what was going on in the 70s and 80s, right, Danny? And so this probably should have been pretty obvious to Harold who's coming after him.
Yeah, especially you got the casino that didn't blow up, and then you got this one. Those are two of his big properties, and you have to know someone's. But yeah, he kind of is going to go after the other gang kingpins in London, and most of them. Goes right along with Michael Corleone and the Godfather, and somewhat even in I can't think of the name of the movie right now. Anyway, with some of the gangster movies where they do not want to get involved in drugs, and Harold didn't want anything to do with drugs, but he had to go into the neighborhoods of the drug lords to get information.
Right. Well, yeah, it was actually Vito Corleone. He's meeting with all the other five heads of the families, and it was the Turk. The Turk was the name of the guy. They called him the Turk, who actually tried to kill the Don, and ends up getting killed by Michael Corleone, him and the police captain, because they want to go into drugs, and that old Don doesn't want to do that. He says, I have all these contacts and friends, judges and politicians, because I'm not in drugs. They're okay with vice. They're okay with gambling. They're not okay with drugs. So if I go into drugs, they're not going to help me. And
also goes with Goodfellas is a movie I was trying to think of, because
Goodfellas.
They didn't want to get into drugs, but the character played by Ray Liotta, that's all he wanted to do was drugs.
Yeah, well, I think like Goodfellas, as you get in, they don't want to get in drugs, but they, if some of their people are actually involved in drugs, they were okay with the kick up, right?
Right.
They were okay with the money, so they turn a blind eye. Okay, Martine. As soon as this one's over, we'll go with our scene here. Irish, I said Irish, and here they are figuring out that it is the Irish, and it's the copper saying, "Hey, this is a special branch thing," and he wants to get out because what he knows is, he's corrupt. He's helping these guys. He doesn't want to get blown up by the Irish, but also, the people who go into special branch, they're your top-notch investigators. They're going to turn over rocks. They're not corrupt. If they find a corrupt cop, they're going to prosecute. He wants to get the hell out of the way because he recognizes that this is not good for him personally, not only safety wise but career wise. It's one thing for a cop to be working with Harold on vice things like sex and gambling, which is where Harold's at on most of it, and maybe a little bit of extortion. But he doesn't want to get involved when he's mixed in with the Irish, because the Irish are pretty dangerous. They will target cops. They do kill cops, but also the cops that go after the Irish are they're serious actors. They're like your major crimes guy here in L.A. They find something, they're going to keep digging. That's who they put into this stuff, and they're going to keep digging. They're going to find out what's going on with Harold and his whole crew in relationship with the Irish, right, Danny?
Yeah, exactly. They're going to keep digging. They're going to go, and it's rare that you would find anybody. Matter of fact, it's almost unbelievable that you'd find anybody in a position like that would be corrupt.
Yeah, it's what though. I was, like I said, I worked in an area where there's a lot of sex, drugs, and rock and roll and vice, a lot of vice, and it was years after I left, about probably 8 or 9 years. They had a lieutenant who was tipping off massage parlors in the area that the feds were doing takedowns of them, and they caught him on tape. So I don't know if he was getting physical favors or financial favors, but he was definitely getting favors from them, and he got caught, and I think he was allowed to retire versus getting prosecuted. So he had to leave his career early. I think he was slated to be a captain there. That's how much the city loved him. So I had to leave the city there because I was enforcing some laws they didn't want me to enforce. So, so it got political for me at West Hollywood, and I left. But he was he essentially replaced me in a lot of things that I did. I was actually, and I was focused on rapes, solving rape problems. So we had a lot of rapes, and they were drug facilitated. So I developed a strategy to catch the people who were doing it. I figured it was probably a handful of people that were going to the clubs, and there's certain things you could do if you did your investigations in a certain way where you can gather information to figure out, because these guys were doing multiple rapes is what I was figuring out. So you have one guy doing multiple, and probably a series of them. City didn't like me looking at it because it required you to be do public awareness. You had to do some public awareness so that more people would report what's happening to them. And yeah, you were an investigator, Dan. You get more people. If you got more women that are getting raped, you got more women that are reporting. the bits and pieces that they report because they're drugged, because it comes in bits and pieces. It doesn't come as a straight narrative because they've been drugged. You link those bits and pieces together, and now you can get a suspect profile, right? So that's what I was trying to do. And they didn't like the fact that I said, well, we got to advertise that this is happening. They freaking hated that. Oh my God, I was a target for like 10 months. And I finally said, you know, they wouldn't let me go to a meeting to talk about it publicly. I can only write memos to justify they couldn't, I was solid because I had done my research. And, but eventually I said, hey, you know, after 10 months of pressure, I said, you know what? If it's easier for me to leave, then I'll leave. Just send me to transit. And that's where I went. But yeah, there was, you know, but the guy who replaced me ended up being corrupt, and they caught him. So it does happen, I guess, and still does. And I think sex and money are big drivers of that. But here he pulls his crew together and he says, all right, let's go round up all the usual suspects who cause us problems. And some of these guys do look a little stout. They look like they've been involved in some street battles. And what do you think, Danny? Those guys are a little more stout. His whole crew.
Yeah, they're the enforcers. They're the lieutenants and the guys that are on the streets every day.
They're the Luca Brassi's. They're the Luca Brassi's, right? Yeah. That's who they are. You know, one of the interesting things, and I'll say this, and then we'll go to a break, and then we'll come back and finish up, is Razor. It's interesting if you look at some of the gangster stuff down in Australia and to some degree London, because you didn't have guns. They just used knives and razors. If you ever watch the Pinky Blinders, I think is the name of the series there, and they have razors in their hat, and that's their tools. And so you see on Razor's face that he's got this cut. There was a point in time they had no guns, and they were using knives and razor blades as their tool, offense and defense. Okay, we're at the halfway mark. Let's take a quick break, Martine, and we'll be back in 2 minutes. If anybody's got to use the facilities like I do, see you in a bit.
There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all. Movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis. Official scoops from Geekosity magazine. Reviews and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield. Well, they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then. There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all. Movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis. Official scoops from Geekosity magazine. Reviews and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield. Well, they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then.
So welcome back to Morning Coffee with the Chief. We are reviewing the movie A Long Good Friday. Let's see if Danny comes back. I think did he drop out? Martine?
No, he's not back at his seat
Okay.
yet. So
Well, as I said before, so the Razor gangs were criminal gangs who dominated Sydney, the Sydney crime scene in the 1920s after the passage of the Pistol Licensing Act in 1927. The Parliament of New South Wales imposed severe penalties on carrying concealed weapons and handguns. In response, Sydney gang figures began to use razors as their preferred weapon, particularly due to their capacity to inflict disfiguring scars. So the razor gang. So, and you saw that in the series Pinky Blinders, where they used razors. That was a big deal, and maybe that's why Razor got his name. Maybe he went down to Sydney and did some crime stuff there. So that the Razor Gang. I thought that was. I have all these little tidbits of stuff in my brain that I remember, and I remembered that. And when I heard Razor's name, I thought of this Razor Gang and how they use razors versus firearms to enforce. So hey, welcome back, guys, and we're gonna let's roll with the scene. Jack and let's see, and this is so we see some of the. This is just some of the characters, and I think they're trying to still convince the American guy to stay. I believe Jack is. Let me look up his character. Martin, maybe you can help me out. He is. Let's see here. Jack. So Jeff is the main guy. Jack is. Well, he's Alan Ford. He's an English actor best known for his roles in Guy Ritchie. So he was in Snatch. He was in Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels. Jack was and appearing in separate characters in episodes as the Bill. So, but I used him as kind of hit this scene up. So I got to see the scene to remember it. Remember the scene, Martine?
no.
No, I don't.
He was meeting this guy in a bar.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
he was
yeah.
going
Jack.
to, it sounds like he was an enforcer from another
Yeah.
family, a mafia type family.
Yes, he was in this movie. He was one of the thugs that I had to was in the previous meeting that we saw.
Right.
And he was in Snatch. He was playing Bricktop in Snatch. He was in Lockstock. He was the owner of the other pub that was the friend of Sting's character.
Right.
Hell, he even played a cab driver in An American Werewolf in London.
So this is he plays the guy they just beat up. He plays I guess I don't want to say an opponent, or a protege, or not a protege, but a colleague, but probably a rival of Harold's, previously a rival of Harold's. So here they are. They're still trying to convince our American guy to stay invested, and of course he's no fool. He's starting to ask tough questions. Where's Harold? How come Harold is what's this blowing up stuff? Obviously he saw the bomb, so he's not going along with it was a gas leak and all this other stuff. This is not coincidental for him. He's been through this. Obviously the American mafia used bombs in the past. He's knowing there's a problem, and he forces, you got to tell me the truth, otherwise I won't work with you in the future. That's probably pretty good business. If you lie to me, I'm not going to work with you in the future. Tell me the truth. Either way, the deal is ended at this meeting. And Helen here, she does a pretty good job. This is where you see her beauty, right, Martine? She's in this scene. She's supposed to seduce this guy and keep him, not seduce him literally, but seduce him figuratively and keep him engaged, right? That's what Hoskins is hoping that she can do, right?
Yeah.
And
but the politician, the guy is wasted.
I know.
And he gets handsy and everything, and he cannot take a second more of him.
Yeah, and he knows what's going on too. The politician knows what's going on too, and he's trying to. This is a big deal for him too, because he's going to make big money on this as well. So he's trying to keep this American investor involved. But yeah, you know what? I mean, if this is a life-changing thing, you don't get plastered at the table, right? Right? You don't drink too much and then become a sloppy drunk. And here's
and speak of your plans at a high volume. Please keep Don't be loud. You're in a public place.
It was it Michael Corleone didn't like people who were loud, right? You know, they're bad, right? If you're loud, then you bring in problems. You saw that with who was Gotti? He killed Big Paul, right? So and he took over the what family did he take over? I think the Gambino family. But he was loud and proud, right? He was the Dapper Don. He loved all that, but that brought so much attention and targeting that it took him down, right? So and this guy, this gangster knows that. He doesn't like this loud. He doesn't like this blown up. He doesn't like people getting drunk, you know, and so that's what you get out of this scene. It's this his deal is going down the tubes, right, Danny?
Yeah, the American mafioso guys, the heads of those families, they're strictly business. They don't play all this little BS that this guy wants to. Yeah, let's go have some more brandies. The American dude's going, no, we're not gonna. I'm not having any of that. Matter of fact, I'm out of here. But he agreed only because Helen
Right.
told him it's all going to be over with by the end of the night, and just stay one more night, and then, or stay until tomorrow, and then they'll be taken care of. And I think just out of friendship of Harold and friendship of Helen, he stayed because there's no other reason. I'm like you guys. I'd have been on the first jet out of town.
He probably already knows he's not going to do this deal, right? Yeah. But maybe there'll be some future deals with these guys. So he's just being nice. But you saw it in the Godfather and all these other things. It's like, hey, violence is bad for business. So it's the same way with the NATO, right? Hey, you can't join NATO if you're involved in a conflict because you're going to drive us into a conflict, right? That's why, if you do it just it makes sense. So here the mafia guys are, they're following the same thing that the nations are doing. Hey, man, they won't let Georgia join NATO. They won't let the Ukraine join NATO and that's why Putin is taking a chunk of them. He takes a chunk of the land, holds onto it. There's a conflict there, and they can't join NATO then. That's why he's doing it,
Yeah.
Take some, freeze it, hold it, and then it these nations can't. That's why Azerbaijan, I think he was doing that up there, and anywhere he can do it, that's what he's doing. And if you look at geopolitical politics and how these guys are playing, it's kind of the same thing, right?
It definitely is. What I get a kick out of this scene here is it Jeff's the passenger and Helen's driving, but it's Jeff's car.
Oh, it is.
I'm under the impression it's Jeff's car because he's the one always driving it.
It's the corporation's car, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
But it's she's in charge though, right? That's an unusual part. You don't normally see the love interest of the head guy playing an essential role in the running of the crews, right? The mafia guys, right?
Right.
And she is playing a central role, of course. It fits with the plot, of course. And here's Jeff who's pining away for his boss's wife, so. But yeah, we don't normally see women playing a central role in the mafia. Although I don't know, Martine. I think Colombia had some female gangsters running some stuff in the U.S. I think there was one down in Florida. I can't remember her nickname now. But some of them get into it. But you don't normally see that in American mafia, and you certainly don't see that in. I wouldn't think that you'd see that in UK as well. Females like this, but she does play a primary role in Harold's outfit, right, Martine?
Well, yes, she's the lubricant. She,
yeah.
Yes, she's the social lubricant. She's the one eliminating the friction. She's the one that makes or try to make everybody get along.
Yeah, she's also the one that gets hit on by Jeff in the elevator, and it's interesting because you would have thought she'd have said, "Back off, Jeff," but she lets it go on to tell when the door pops open, right? And he says, "I forget, I would eat you up," or whatever he says to her, and she just ignores him and moves on. And yeah, I would think she would have told Harold about that too, but she didn't. Helen's character Victoria is right in the squeezing the bastard's legs. So he wants to embarrass Charlie about being a made man. There we go. Harold,
Well,
yeah.
she's
So
a psychologist, so she's pretty well aware of what would happen to the organization if uh, she speaks about out about Jeff, because she knows who Harold is.
right.
Harold Harold has just been behaving for the last 10 years, but they imply that Harold was Harold is a very violent man
Yeah.
who
We ultimately see that, but yeah.
yeah who's trying to keep himself under control. But when he lost control, man, he 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 ends up doing things that he himself regrets after some fashion.
Yeah,
And
he
as you talk about that, and near the beginning of the movie, when they were getting ready for the banquet on the boat, the French chef, and Helen has these plates, and she's saying how expensive they are and how fragile they are, and that Harold broke a couple because he doesn't know his own strength. And
Yeah.
I didn't get it at that part, but a little bit later on, when he's squeezing that wine glass and he breaks it, with his thumb, that one goes, "Oh crap!" And then later on in the movie, we'll get to that scene, when he does what he does. That's
Yeah.
where Martinez is right. He doesn't know his own strength or how violent he can be, I guess.
Yeah, I think again, it's as little does Harold know Jeff will be the main traitor of this whole cul-de-sac. I think he kind of worded that differently, but that's what he's saying. That's an interesting way to say this is a cul-de-sac for Harold's Harold's group, as we find out. And well, let's roll with the freezer scene, which I thought was this was the scene that I always remembered from this movie. And so Harold, he's the big dog in the London Underground, right? And he has made peace with all of his opponents for the last 10 years. This is what you find out, right? But he still thinks somebody is targeting him. Somebody's not happy. And it's interesting. The first guy that he kind of beats up, what are you talking about? Everything's been great. We're making money. Why would we betray you? And they roll all these guys out of a truck, a freezer truck, into this meat packing factory, and they're all hanging by their heels. Now, this was a scene in the movie that I never forgot. I go, wow, this is crazy, And I don't know if this has inspiration from real life. I mean, we do have mobsters using meatpacking factories to store their dead and butcher them and cut them up into pieces, and not just that. And they did it in, I think one of the guy, Roy DeMaio, and a New York mafia guy, they call it the Gemini way. He had his club was the Gemini Lounge, and when they killed somebody, they took them underneath and they in the basement of that place, and they chopped them all up to get rid of the bodies. So I guess this is not unusual, but it was one of those things when you're young and watching as a teenager, when it's because so as a young man I watched this, I go, wow, But I remember the scene. What'd you think of the scene, Danny?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I kind of want to say, wasn't there something in The Godfather where they used a meat packing plant? And I'm pretty sure in Goodfellas they did. And I definitely know in the movie The Goonies that
The Goonies?
The Goonies, the mobsters in that movie froze a body in this old restaurant. So,
well,
it's something you see a lot in American movies.
Yeah, and layer cake, they did it there, right? They used their Martine, they did it right. They put him in a freezer. One of the guys in a freezer, and kept his body there. It was interesting. So we did a movie called The Layer Cake, and in the beginning of the movie, you see one of the main guys chopping up a fish, right, in this freezer area, and then he throws it in a cooler, and one of the guys ends up getting killed, and he ends up getting put on ice in the freezer with the fishes. And I just felt that was a throwback to the Godfather movie with Luca Brasi. Luca Brasi sleeping with the fishes, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I just think it's interesting how these movies intersect and connect, and they look back at old gangster movies and they put pieces in there that are like that was, to me, that was very consistent with The Godfather, right? They looked at that, and you see some of that in here. You see where I don't want to say they're copying. I think it's more of kind of an ode to the movie, a nod of respect, I guess is probably the best way to say it, to these old movies, but they do these kinds of things, right? And it makes it interesting because if you're a movie buff, you remember that stuff and you go, oh yeah, and I'd love to sit down with the writers and ask them, well, was this a nod to The Godfather or to these other movies? But that's what I think it is. What do you think, Danny?
I kind of agree with you. It is a nod to The Godfather and other gangster movies, just giving them credit. One thing I was impressed, I've never been in a meatpacking plant, so I don't know. But the rail system that they had to move these things around, that was impressive.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you got to save the guy's back. I mean, instead of carrying the can't have the old Polish and German guys carrying the beef. You got to just put them on these racks. This is, we got Jeff even confesses that he should have come clean. So finally Jeff, he opens up a little bit and says that there was a problem, and it is with the Irish. And this is after the guy from Special Branch said, so they looked at the bomb they got from the casino, right? And as we know, when you're bombs have signatures, for bomb makers. If you have a bomb maker, he tends to stick to a particular pattern, particular devices that he uses in the bomb or components in the bomb. I mean, that's why, when they got Ted Kaczynski, there were certain ways that he made his bombs, right? And you see that with any serial bomber. And that's how they track some of these bombers that are, hitting in the Middle East. They look at how it's made, and it is that signature that tells them who's likely doing it. In this case, the signature points to somebody who's building bombs for the IRA, and that's who's involved. Can you reinforce that, Danny? That's pretty accurate. If they're doing bomb investigations, that's how they're going to follow it, right?
That's exactly how it was when I went through post-blast school. That's one of the things they let us, and they nailed into you is that every bomb by one particular group or person, they're going to be very similar. In the military, the guys, they can track, the bomb techs in the military, they can track what terrorist organization, all the way down to the particular terrorist who built the bomb and what building they built it on. And they were doing this in Iraq and Afghanistan and a couple other countries. They were able to track these guys down because they knew just from the fingerprints that I'll just use fingerprints, but from the prints that was left on the type of bomb and how it was made. And because you're going to go out and the Israelis got away with it. I don't know how, but they'll go out and buy or get a hold of 50 particular one-offs of something and make 50 bombs. You're going to figure it out. Now the Israelis got away with it with the pager things. I want to know how they got.
That was awesome. How that was probably that was awesome. What they did, and they did it with two different devices. They did pagers and they did radios, right?
Radios.
So, and it took them 10 years to plan that out. Can you imagine that? And whether you support the whole Israeli cause or not, you have to take your hat off to the Mossad and how they did that. Because first you have to get them to distrust cell phones, right? And which they did. They used the cell phones to track leaders and killed them. Then they say, well, we can't use cell phones on you anymore. So they decided to use an old technology, and the Mossad already knows they're going to do that. And they develop this, they get into the supply chain and they develop this supplier, and they create all these pager bombs, like 5,000 of them, and give them to all these idiots. And and they all got a little charge in them. And as soon as it's starting to really get hot with Hezbollah, they blow them up, and it takes out most of their leadership and their mid-level leadership. It was great. And then the next day they already had the radios going, right? So they realized, they're going to be checking all their devices, so let's do the radios today, right? Boom. And then the next day they saw a funeral or for one of the guys who died with the pager bomb, and the next day the radios blow up. So it was,
yes.
that was awesome. Doesn't matter where you're at, you gotta look at the creativity of Mossad in that. But hey, Martine, so they had bombings in Colombia too. Same thing, same kind of stuff. That's how they tracked who was doing the bombings for Pablo. I think it was Pablo Escobar and that kind of stuff too. So this stuff goes in Central and South America as well, right?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Yeah, and not anymore in Colombia, right?
No, he was the one who did that for a very long time.
All right, let's roll with the next scene. Left to die in a ditch, and this is where Bob puts it all together. Bob Hoskins puts it all together. Arrow puts it all together, and he needs to figure he figures it out, and it's interesting because now the wife ties it all together. So her husband, who was the driver for Colin, goes to Belfast, and he's left to die in a ditch. So we saw, and she kind of pulls it all together. So now Hodgkin understands what happened now, and so she plays a really pivotal role. This actress here, and helping Hodgkin tie it all together. And of course, she says she's left with nothing. She's got a couple of kids. Her husband's dead. He obviously did some side work for this crew here, but he was a driver as well. So he's obviously probably driving other people legitimate fares and that kind of stuff as well. And she ties it all together, right, Danny?
Yeah, she did play a good part, especially when she put that big old honking movie in Jeff's face at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out that scene until I saw this scene. And then it goes, oh, the light clicks on.
Yes.
And I don't know how much money she asked for. She said $100,000 a week. I don't know what. I don't know that money system.
Yeah, her husband didn't make a lot of money doing well. He died. It's interesting that Hodgkin is obviously he's shocked that, and he does. You see a little bit of sympathy out of him here and there, right? And this is one of the times you see sympathy, because her husband's dead and she's got nothing, right? And he opens up, he says, "We'll take care of you." Of course, he dies, later that day, so it probably didn't happen very much. But he buys buy a good stone for him, which is really kind of. I think that was a shallow comment because it really means nothing. But he does. You can see that he wants to take care of it. He's shocked that this happened. He doesn't know at all.
He's shocked and he's pissed.
And he's yes.
It's slowly coming all together, and he's realizing that he's going, oh crap. And then I think he gets a little delusional. But we'll get to that part in a little bit.
I don't think he was really that red in the scene, or maybe it's just because I don't remember him having that kind of redness in his face. But what I do remember is his facial reactions as she's talking. This is another one of those scenes. Yeah, he's not really saying that much, but you can see in his facial reactions that he's concerned. There's empathy, but there's also anger, which is what you're talking about, Danny, right?
Right.
And that's what really makes for good actors when
I think she did a good job with the same thing, the facial expressions and the showing the sadness that she has that her husband was killed. And she's also pissed at him, but he doesn't know why, or he's slowly putting it together why she's pissed.
Yeah. So this was a pivotal scene, right, Martine?
Oh yeah.
Let's see what we got. This is I think the next scene that I wanted to do, and oh no, actually, did we do Jeff already, that scene? No, we did not. So this is the next scene is Jeff, right? Yeah, and so that's coming up right after this here. But he's putting it together, and we know the confrontation with Jeff is coming, right? And it ends up being a explosive and not something that I predict. But let's this picture was this picture has wonderful shots. Yeah, and it was all shot in London, which is kind of cool, right? It's I've been to London twice. I love London. It's great. But here's Hodgkin. He knows the story, and he knows that Jeff is behind all this. He doesn't know everything that Jeff is doing. he clearly is suggesting that Harold is behind this to the IRA, because otherwise he would be dead by now, right? Jeff would be dead, right? And they are targeting Harold, and now he's figured it all out. And he knows Jeff is behind this. But throughout the movie, you get this impression that Jeff is like a son to him, right? That he has this connection with them that is beyond just being gangsters, right? He sees him as a son figure, somebody that he's mentoring, and he cares about him in a way that maybe he doesn't care about the thug the Luca Brasilis of the world, right? And so he is definitely feeling betrayed. But you see that in this relationship, right, Danny?
Yeah, he treats them like family.
Yeah, like family. That's a good way to say it. And but he's mentoring him. He sees him as doing bigger and better things for the corporation, the organization. He's going to be part of the growth, right? And that's why it's frustrating. He's playing it cool here. He talks about how
well,
he what?
Cool. Look at that face.
Yeah.
He even knows that. Oh, I'm screwed here.
Oh, Jeff. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He knows. Yeah. And he tries to talk his way out of it. But he was treated like a part of the family, right? Right, Martine?
And I think that's the mistake that Harold made, because when he had that outburst in the freezer and start hitting people, I don't know, when you see people acting like they are not, you have to know that they are acting. He was trying to portray that he was ultra loyal, and
Yes.
Harold has so much fondness for him that he can look the
He
things that is happening. He
didn't
cannot
see it.
even
He didn't see it.
think that Jeff is
Right.
playing.
Yeah. Yeah. The people closest to you, you can't believe that they'll be the ones that betray you, right?
And they are the one who does.
And the other, and Jeff, his behavior in the freezer, because he wanted to keep shifting the blame on these local gangsters in London as being the culprits, and shifting it away from the Irish, right? And he knew it was the Irish, and of course that meant shifting it away from himself, right? So you could see how ticked off Harold is. Yeah, you know what, Gambit, I think what we've been talking about in this movie is just why Bob Hoskins is a really good actor, because he just betrays so much just in his facial expression, because he realizes his longtime friend Jeff and mentor, and I say he treats him like a son, is now a traitor and a Judas, right? And you see the fear in Jeff's face. He's afraid. He knows he's screwed up. He's wondering, can I survive this? And
I think he's secretly hoping that the wife hasn't tell anything to Harold.
Yeah, that's true. That's probably going through his brain as well. That did Helen say anything, or did she say anything? And he does come clean. He basically says that. Basically, they had to pay off the Irish because the Irish were providing the workers, and the Irish IRA expected. This is the old union scam, right? I unionize the workers, and then you have to, the mafia scam. You have to pay extra money to me, otherwise the workers are going to strike. That's the scam that the mafia used to make money in New York forever, and probably still are. And the IRA kind of doing the same thing. All the workers are Irish. If you want to build the stuff that you're going to build, or you are building, you got to pay us. Otherwise, you won't have the workers. That's the scam, right, Martine?
Yes, exactly. And that is why they were, well, they don't. The politician is the one paying the IRA, but he's using Harold organization as a courier without Harold knowing.
Yes.
That's the thing. It's a side business of Jeff.
Okay, Danny lost his internet connection. Well, just log out and log back in if you can, Danny. Okay, there you are. I can hear you. We just can't see you.
Yes.
I don't. I think it might be better just the voice, Danny. I don't know. It's.
Oh my
That's the second time you said that.
All
Never
right.
gonna do.
So what do you think of the scene? So Harold is figuring it out, and Jeff is afraid. You can see the fear, and this is again, this is why I like a lot of these, whether it was the 12 Angry Men, the Incident, and these movies where it's more drama and it's face to face. You know, this is where I think you see really good actors show their craft and show their trade. And of course, and Harold is explosive and angry, and he's going after Jeff here now. But you know, as you see the build up to this violence that we're happening here, that's where you see really good actors in these close up scenes, these lengthy dialogue scenes, and the facial expressions, and the nuances and the voices that really make a good actor. And that's why I think Bob Hoskins got a lot of play out of this movie. He did very good. And Jeff is now meeting his Waterloo here. So he's threatened by the IRA. So he never tells Harold because he's afraid for his own life. While at the same time putting Harold at danger here, right? So, and Harold loses it, as he should. I mean, Jeff he's like the spoiled son who gets everything and then keeps taking. Eventually, you got to cut him off, right? And well, Harold's going to literally do that. But what do you think of this scene, Danny?
This was where first time you heard the word Mick in this movie. I'm used to hearing Mick from
yeah.
No, it's not the first time.
He used it earlier.
Yes, when they blow up the lion and the unicorn.
Oh yeah.
He says Mick, and then he used the same expression to his thugs to tell them when he's telling them to go round up everybody.
Okay. So he had a clue that it was a mix earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is he does a good job of getting pissed off here and angry at Jeff. You know, you look at that face again. It's like that's kind of scary. This is a guy that's on a mission, and once again, you're going to find out he has no control over his anger, and he's doesn't really control his strength all that good either. But Jeff's got to have a pretty hard head because whiskey bottles, whiskey bottle on the break.
Here could be worse. Could have been a bottle of champagne.
Yeah, true.
He gets it in the neck here when he stabs him with and I did see somebody. I actually watched a guy die that way, where he took a shard of glass to the neck, and a car accident. Got there, he was still alive, and the blood's coming out, and you see his eyes fade. So
the only part I didn't like about this was you're seeing that much blood coming out, and a few scenes later, there's no blood on the floor.
Oh, well, that's the magic of Hollywood, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. Yeah.
There's no blood, no nothing anywhere, no fake blood, no nothing anywhere. And it's like I seen a guy's female artery when his leg got cut off, it was squirting out, and it's like all over the freeway, and it's like, ooh.
Yeah. I went to a scene, so we're talking bloody scenes. We had a shooting that night where Debbie got shot, and so we all went to the bar, right? So from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, I was drinking, and I was going home, and this car accident happened. This guy had his arm hanging out the car, and it almost took off most of his arm, right? It was still hanging on by a thread, and I'm a little intoxicated. I stopped to help, and he's bleeding, and I pinched up his arm. So I just lifted it up to pinch it shut and put direct pressure, and I'm covered with blood. Oh my God. And all I could think, because it's West Hollywood, so do you have a girlfriend? Because I want to know if he's sleeping with guys, if this guy's got AIDS or not or whatever. And yeah, and then he goes on, he goes into shock, and unfortunately, ambulance guy rolls up and immediately put gauze on him. And the next day, I go to the hospital to visit the deputy who'd been shot, and they saved this guy's arm, and he was alive. And I went to see him, and I asked him, "Do you remember me?" He goes, "No, I don't remember anything from the accident." So we didn't know, but so they saved him. They saved his arm. They saved, because when I pinched it up, it put direct pressure, stopped the bleeding, and held it there until the ambulance guy got there, and he was able to just pack it with gauze to help hold the bleeding. But it was all over the place. It was nasty.
The days before we carried tourniquets.
Yeah. While I was in my personal car, I was go home covered in blood, and oh God, why did I do that? You know,
Good luck explaining that.
Well, I was single at the time, so I'm just drive over the canyon and go home and strip my clothes off, take a shower, and go to bed. Because remember I'd had like 4 or 5 drinks as well. So I was, because when you go to a shooting and one of your buddies gets shot, you kind of go through this whole psychological stuff. But hey, let's roll with. So Jeff is dead, and Harold's pissed, and he decides he's going to take. Had to step away, Chief. Hey, who's this Campkin? Hey, how are you doing? Let's see, spot on. Hopkins and company put on some great performances. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Let's roll with this next scene. You can't do this. So Hopkins, he's mad. So he's killed Jeff. He's angry. I think he's angry at himself that he killed Jeff. He's angry at the people who are doing this. And he decides that he's going to basically pretend a negotiation with these guys, but he's going to take them out. And everybody involved says, you can't do this. You can't do this. You cannot take on the Irish. And they're right. They keep saying those people are crazy, right? And they're driven by religious, to some degree, religious fanaticism, right? So they're driven by their faith and don't do this. This is the wrong people to tangle with. It's better to negotiate than to fight these guys. But he's going to do it anyway. So here he is. They're doing this meeting at this. So we do have some cars that crash and burn here. So I think they had to figure out some way to get a crashed and burning car in this scene. But they do this at a what do they call them? The crash 'em derby kind of things.
Stock car race.
Car race, yeah. Well, but where there's a lot of mud and they're crashing into each other and all that other stuff.
That's a demolition derby.
Demolition derby. Thank you very much, Martin. And he's warned, don't do this. But Harold's going to do it anyways because he is Harold.
Illusion
right?
at this point.
Yeah, that's the place. He's Harold.
He's Harold, but he's also pissed, right? He's pissed that they did this to him, and he's going to show them, I'm in charge. He basically says it, I'm in charge. But everybody else, the cop tells him, don't mess with these guys. The politician says, don't mess with these guys. Jeff tells him, don't mess with these guys. But he's going to do it because he's Harold. Totally mad at himself due to the blind rage of killing his friend and partner, although the guy betrayed him, and screams out loud from the boat. Yeah, you do get a lot of that screaming stuff. I don't see that. I don't see a gangster screaming like that. It's just. See, Hill had the same get close. Yeah. So he's going to do this anyways, right? And here's Harold, and it's interesting because they take out the politician too. I don't know if you noticed that. They take out because he's the traitor too, right? So he decides to take all of them out. He probably thinks he's going to survive that. Now there's a car in here. I don't know if you saw one of these cars. It looked like the Batmobile. He rides up in the car. It looks like the Batmobile, only it's yellow. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is
not. The pipes coming out the back.
It's a Batmobile, only it's yellow. So
it is not the Batmobile. It was a Ford Futura prototype because I think they made only 2 prototypes of that. And
didn't it look like a Batmobile?
Yes, they did a great job making it look like a Batmobile.
Oh, I'm glad that you noticed that. I go, hey, it's the Batmobile, only it's yellow. And here's our main guy for the IRA, and of course he gets taken out, but there's Harold doing his deal. Yeah, so they're in over his head, kind of like the families when they took on the Corleones. They didn't realize it, but they were in over their head, right? And when they took on the Corleones, because this guy gets his money, but it's going to be a quick strike back. It's not going to. There's Harold. He knows what he's doing, and all the smoking too. This is purely, here's our politician. Now I don't think he was lock, stock, and 2 smoking barrels. There's Razor coming in, and see, here's our politician. Now he knows he's also the target. Because he's the one who got him into this. So
now, before the race was over, where Harold had walked over to the window, and he was kind of walking around the window, there was a sniper
Yes.
Yeah.
sitting off to the side. I'm trying to figure out, was that an IRA sniper or was that one of
Yes, that was IRA.
yeah, because Harold smartly he walked back and got away from that window.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But you already know. And here's this. We had to have a car crash, and of course, they had a pink car. And here's
Yes,
the
they have
car crash.
a car crash because one of the cars uh, tumbles when going over the bodies of the guys that went out of the boot.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess that's when you have these action movies now, everybody's got to have a car crash and something's got to blow up and there's got to be fire and all that other stuff now. But I mean, that's the way they are now. So, and here's Helen, and she's just going back to her place. But yeah, so it's over with now. They think it's over with. And
Yes,
Helen is now convincing they're trying to convince the Italian guy to still invest, right? They're still working that angle. This is one day, right? So now we're getting into late evening or at night on Good Friday. So this is all supposed to transpire in one day. Think about that.
No. I think
It rolls over
this is the second day.
into the second day.
into the second day. So long Good Friday, right? So
It's not like 24.
well, that's what's kind of implied with the title, right? The long Good Friday.
Yeah.
So yeah. Of course, it was going to be the Patty problem was going to be the title. So, but let's roll with the next scene right now because this is I think for me the final scene is the best scene in the movie. Harold goes up here and he's still trying to swing this deal. It doesn't work, and he gets picked. He gets picked
the deal
up.
that is not gonna be made at this point.
Right.
And he gets into the car.
Yeah.
And it's not his car. Hey.
And it's not his car. And then and I love that. This is a great scene. He's looking in the rearview mirror. We got you, and then you see Pierce just pop up with his silenced gun pointing at him. And
they got their wife.
And they got the wife in the other car, and he sees her, right? He sees Helen in the other car, Victoria in the other car. And she's toast too. They're going to kill her too. Everybody's going, right? And they're going to probably wipe out his organization, but they got him. Or maybe they'll keep it in place and they'll just work for the Irish and give them money. But it's I think this is the absolute best scene as he's driving away. Here's Pierce pointing his gun. Look how young he is too, right? And it's this facial expression of Bob Hoskins or Harold as he's recognizing what's going on. He has no power, he has no control, and he's going to be sleeping with the fishes soon, or whatever the Irish do with these guys. But that's what's happening. And this is what did you think of this scene, Dan? That the whole because you look at his face, he's angry, he's thinking, how do I deal with this? And then you see him denial, and then recognition and acceptance. As you see all the what are all those things of when you got terminal illness, you go through all those stages of grief and kind of thing, and he's going through them all in 2 minutes, right?
He's accepting his fate right there.
At least he's not crying and begging for his life. Well, there you got me.
Yeah, so I think that the best scene in the movie. Go ahead, Danny.
That had to be one long car drive. As they were doing that, I was thinking about some of these countries where they're kidnapping Christians and they're taking them down to the beach and chopping their heads off or shooting them.
Right.
It's like the mental anguish that you're going through, and then I'm seeing this, and I go, they're portraying the mental anguish of something that happens all the time in real life.
Yeah.
You just have to accept your fate.
Well, I mean, the whatever the 12 stages of grief, when you got terminal illness, you're gonna die, and you go through it, your family goes through it, and Harold is going through those 12 stages in 2 minutes, or however long this, we see it in 2 minutes,
like minute and a half.
A minute and a half, but you're right, Danny. He's however long this ride is going to go is how long he's going through it, and Helen the same way. She's she's facing she's gonna be sleeping with the fishes too pretty soon here. And but yeah, that's I thought that was the best scene in the movie, and I think it really it shows the kind of acting prowess that Bob Hoskins has. What do you think, Martin? Same thing?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, what was the, we got a couple minutes. What was the favorite scene in your movie, of the movie? Was it this as well, or what part of it?
Like car crashes and things blowing up and people getting shot.
Oh, that's the 2000s coming out. Yeah, right. And so I don't know.
No. In The Godfather, they blew up a car and they killed a bunch of people.
Well, you know what? Go ahead, Martin.
When he killed Jeff.
Yeah.
Because in that moment you see so much of the nature of both characters in either what they say and what they don't say, how they act and react. For a second there, Jeff believe he's out of danger. Yes, he's angry with me, but maybe he won't kill me. And it may have gotten out with that, but the moment he says he contrariates him, saying, do not go against these guys because you're nothing to them. When he says that is when Harold lost control.
Yeah.
And he killed him more like as a reaction, that's something that he has thought. Then you see how he regrets having doing that.
Right. If you remember
He
back,
embraces him, he shouts, and then he starts rationalizing. No, I killed him because he betrayed me.
Yeah, he
was out of control.
He and that's where the scene where he goes to the drug area, to find out what's going on, and they torture the black guy, right, with the machete. And he comes out. Remember, they had some urchins that are watching his car, and they demand money because they protected his car. And what he says, well, you're supposed to ask for the money up front, but he gives them money anyways. Because and they run away. And he says to Razor, this is how I started out.
Yeah.
So that kind of helps you understand his reaction to Jeff when Jeff says to him, "You're nothing. You're small. You're nothing to them." Because that's where he started out, as nothing. And to be called nothing, that's why I think he reacted that way, with that anger.
Yep.
And exploded that way, because he started as nothing, as nobody cared about him. Extorting people money to protect their cars. And that builds his psyche. Now he's something, and he's told by Jeff, "No, you're nothing to these people," and he took it the wrong way. If Jeff had said, "Listen, these people are incredibly powerful. They have thousands of people behind them. We can't take them on. They're just too strong. We need to find a way to work with them." But instead of saying he was nothing, maybe he would have survived. I don't know, Martin. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if had he chosen his word more carefully, he could have survived.
And maybe this is the throwback to Angels with Dirty Faces kind of thing, the kid protecting the car, because that was I think something they showed in that movie, where they took inspiration from that. But I do like the fact that they do take inspiration from other movies, and they do nods to other movies in this movie, as well as the one we did last week, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and Layer Cake, the one we did a couple weeks ago. But hey, we're at the end of our show here, Martine, I think. And Danny, thank you for joining me again on another movie. I know this wasn't your favorite, but it was an interesting movie, right?
It was actually something you grew into learn. At the very beginning, it was like it's a sleeper. At the end of it, and I go, this is good, pretty good.
Yeah, and it did win a bunch of awards for their British version of the Oscars. I forget what they call it. But so thank you guys for joining me today. We're at the end of our show. Martine, I think you can take it away. We'll stick around for a quick debrief, and see you guys next week.
Okay,
bye, everybody.
gaming.